Success isn't just about hard work, it's about mental discipline. The way you think determines the way you live. To break through self-doubt, distractions, and fear, you must train your mind to work for you, not against you. Let me introduce you to 5 proven techniques to master your mind for success. Why mind mastery is the foundation of success. Mastering the mind is the foundation of all lasting success because every decision, habit, and outcome in life begins in the mind. Before you take a single step toward your goals, your thoughts have already shaped the direction. Your mindset either limits you or liberates you. It governs how you see yourself, how you interpret setbacks, and whether you push forward or give up. People often think success starts with strategy, but strategy without mental discipline is like trying to build a skyscraper on sand. It won't last. The truth is, your external results are a mirror of your internal patterns. If your mind is scattered, filled with doubt, or anchored in fear, no amount of talent or opportunity will take you far. That's why people with similar skills or resources can have dramatically different outcomes, because the one who controls their inner world can better navigate the outer one. Mastering your mind means learning to override old beliefs that keep you stuck, recognizing destructive thought loops, and choosing focus, clarity, and resilience, no matter the circumstance. Success is not about being lucky or constantly motivated. It's about becoming the kind of person who can consistently show up, adapt, and execute, especially when it's hard. That kind of persistence doesn't come from emotion. It comes from mental mastery. When your mind is trained, you don't need perfect conditions. You create progress regardless of chaos around you. You stay locked in on the vision while others get lost in the noise. Every goal you want to reach, whether financial, personal, or professional, requires a version of you that can handle pressure, stay focused, and rise above distraction. That version already exists inside you. Mind mastery is the process of unlocking it. Once you train your mind, success becomes inevitable, not because the road is easy, but because you become unstoppable. How this book will transform your thinking. How this book will transform your thinking lies in its ability to help you break free from unconscious mental patterns and step into a mindset built for success, clarity, and personal power. Most people go through life driven by outdated beliefs, reactive habits, and self-imposed limitations. They try to change their circumstances, work harder, set goals, build skills, without ever addressing the root issue, the way they think. But your mind is the source of every result in your life. Your habits, decisions, relationships, and even your self-worth are shaped by the internal dialogue you live with every day. This book is designed to interrupt that dialogue, challenge it, and rebuild it from the ground up. As you move through each chapter, you'll begin to see how your thoughts influence your behavior and how much of that behavior is automatic, inherited, or based on fear. You'll uncover the silent, internal negotiations you have when you procrastinate, when you settle, when you avoid discomfort. You'll realize that success isn't just about effort, it's about identity. And this book will show you how to shift that identity, one thought and one action at a time. What makes this transformation powerful is its practicality. You won't just read abstract ideas about mindset, you'll learn proven techniques to rewire your thinking daily. These techniques, when applied consistently, help you move from passive dreaming to focused execution. You'll stop waiting for the perfect mood or moment. You'll develop the ability to act with discipline even when motivation fades. This mental shift alone can alter the trajectory of your life. You'll gain the tools to stay calm under pressure, stay committed when results are slow, and stay grounded in your goals when distractions try to pull you off course. The transformation also lies in learning how to separate your emotions from your decisions. You'll develop emotional awareness, learning to respond instead of react. Instead of being ruled by stress, fear, or impulse, you'll gain control over your internal state. And with that control comes clarity. Clarity leads to action. Action leads to results. And results reinforce belief, creating a powerful loop that strengthens your mindset with every small win. This book is not just about learning new ideas, it's about becoming someone new. The person who doesn't just hope for change, but creates it. The person who no longer says, maybe someday, but acts as if it's already happening. As you practice the methods outlined in these pages, you'll begin to think differently, feel differently, and move through the world with greater confidence, certainty, and purpose. This isn't surface-level change, it's transformation at the core of who you are. And once your thinking changes, everything else follows. Chapter 1. Rewire your thoughts with mental clarity. Identifying self-sabotaging patterns requires a deep and honest examination of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. These patterns often operate beneath the surface of your awareness, quietly undermining your progress in ways that feel normal or justified. The challenge lies in the fact that self-sabotage can disguise itself as rational thinking. It may appear as caution, perfectionism, or even practicality, but underneath it all is often fear, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of judgment, or fear of change. Many self-sabotaging patterns begin as coping mechanisms. Maybe you learned to stay quiet as a child to avoid criticism, and now as an adult, you hesitate to speak up in meetings or share your ideas. Maybe you associate success with increased pressure, so you subconsciously stall when things begin to go well. These habits are not random, they're rooted in past experiences, emotions, and beliefs. They form a mental script that plays out automatically when you face certain situations. And until you recognize them, they will continue to steer your life without your permission. To identify these patterns, you have to become a quiet observer of yourself. Look at your habits, especially the ones that cause repeated disappointment. If you always start projects but never finish them, that's a pattern. If you avoid challenges even when you know they could lead to growth, that's another. Ask yourself what happens right before you give up. What thoughts do you have? What emotions rise up? Do you feel unworthy, overwhelmed, or exposed? The answers to these questions often point directly to the root of the sabotage. Another powerful way to detect self-sabotage is to examine the gap between what you say you want and what you consistently do. You may say you want to build a successful business, yet you never follow through on your plans. You may dream of getting fit, but you skip workouts and make excuses about time. This disconnect is not a reflection of laziness. It's a sign that something deeper is interfering with your intentions. That something is usually a limiting belief. You may believe you're not capable, not ready, or not deserving. These beliefs silently control your actions until you challenge them. One of the most revealing exercises is to trace your repetitive failures or frustrations back to your own choices. It's a tough truth to face, but personal responsibility is the first step toward power. You're not blaming yourself, you're reclaiming your ability to respond differently. When you see that your hesitation, delay, or doubt has been part of a loop, you gain the ability to break it. The goal is not to eliminate every flaw or become perfect. It's to become conscious. When you can recognize the moment you're about to sabotage yourself, you create space to choose a different response. That moment of awareness is everything. Over time, as you repeatedly override the old pattern, you build new mental pathways. You begin to act in alignment with your goals, not your fears. That's when real change begins, when your actions stop being controlled by who you used to be and start reflecting who you're becoming. The power of self-awareness. The power of self-awareness lies in its ability to put you in control of your life, instead of being controlled by unconscious habits, emotions, and reactions. When you're self-aware, you're not just moving through life on autopilot, you're observing, questioning, and choosing your responses with intention. Most people operate from a set of default thoughts and behaviors formed early in life. They react rather than respond, repeat patterns without knowing why, and feel stuck without understanding what's holding them back. Self-awareness is the antidote to this blind momentum. At its core, self-awareness means being honest with yourself. It means noticing how you think, how you speak, how you behave, and why. It involves stepping back mentally and asking, what am I feeling right now? Why did I react that way? Is this belief helping me or hurting me? These questions shift your attention inward, away from blaming external circumstances and toward taking full ownership of your internal world. And that's where real growth begins, because you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. Self-awareness allows you to recognize your strengths and weaknesses without judgment. You begin to see your triggers, your fears, and your tendencies with compassion, not criticism. This emotional clarity leads to better decisions. You don't just lash out when you're angry, you pause and reflect. You don't impulsively chase goals that aren't aligned, you ask if they fit your true values. With self-awareness, you gain the ability to course-correct in real time, catching yourself before you slip into old, destructive patterns. Another key benefit of self-awareness is that it deepens your emotional intelligence. You become better at understanding not just yourself, but others too. You notice how your energy affects those around you. You pick up on subtle cues in conversations. You become less reactive and more grounded. This emotional steadiness is a quiet kind of power. It builds trust, influence, and resilience in your relationships and in your leadership. But self-awareness isn't just about introspection. It's also about taking action based on what you discover. Awareness without application is just observation. True self-awareness drives transformation. When you become aware of your limiting beliefs, you begin to challenge them. When you notice the way fear holds you back, you take small, intentional steps to move through it. You shift from being a passive participant in your life to an active creator. Developing self-awareness is not a one-time achievement. It's a lifelong process. It requires stillness, reflection, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. Journaling, meditation, feedback from trusted people, and asking deep questions are all tools that sharpen your self-awareness. The more you practice, the more aligned you become with your values, your goals, and your potential. Ultimately, the power of self-awareness is this: it gives you the clarity to see who you truly are and the courage to become who you're meant to be. It turns your mind from a source of confusion into a compass hand that changes everything. Daily practices to reset your mind. Daily practices to reset your mind are essential for breaking mental stagnation, managing stress, and aligning yourself with clarity and purpose. In today's fast-paced world, your mind is constantly bombarded with noise, social media, emails, deadlines, news, opinions, and internal chatter. Without intentional reset routines, this noise accumulates and begins to cloud your thinking, drain your energy, and disconnect you from your goals. That's why daily mental resets are not a luxury, they're a necessity for anyone serious about personal growth and success. One of the most powerful daily practices is intentional stillness. Whether it's 5 minutes of deep breathing, meditation, or simply sitting in silence before your day begins, creating mental space allows you to separate yourself from the chaos. It teaches your brain to slow down, observe, and detach from the pressure to react. Even brief moments of quiet give your mind the opportunity to reboot, which enhances your ability to focus, make decisions, and stay grounded throughout the day. Another reset tool is journaling. Writing down your thoughts clears mental clutter. It brings unconscious worries to the surface and allows you to see them objectively. By journaling daily, especially in the morning or before bed, you can track your emotions, clarify your priorities, and spot recurring patterns that may be holding you back. Writing isn't just a way to vent, it's a way to reflect, reframe, and refocus. Movement is also a powerful way to reset your mind. Physical activity releases endorphins, clears mental fog, and gives you a break from analytical thinking. Even a brisk 10-minute walk can shift your mood, break obsessive thought cycles, and give you a fresh perspective. When your body moves, your mind follows soften into a more relaxed and creative state. Another daily practice is intentional gratitude. The mind often fixates on problems, lack, or what's going wrong. Gratitude interrupts that cycle by redirecting your attention to what's already working. Every morning or evening, listing just 3 things you're thankful for small ones can rewire your brain to see opportunities instead of obstacles. This simple shift in perspective is incredibly effective in building resilience and long-term emotional strength. Equally important is managing what you consume mentally. A daily reset means being mindful of your inputs. That includes the content you read, the conversations you have, and the self-talk you engage in. Start your day with something uplifting or empowering, a book, podcast, or affirmation rather than scrolling through negativity. Feed your mind with content that aligns with your vision of who you want to become. Setting clear daily intentions can serve as a mental anchor. Instead of reacting to the day, you define it. Ask yourself each morning, what kind of mindset do I want to carry today? What's one thing I can do that moves me closer to my goal? These small questions create big shifts. They turn your day from a blur of activity into a meaningful series of choices. Resetting your mind doesn't require hours, it requires consistency. When you make mental clarity a daily priority, you become more intentional, more focused, and more powerful in how you show up in the world. Over time, these daily resets build the inner strength to face challenges with calm, make better decisions, and create the kind of life that reflects your highest self. Chapter 2. Control your focus. Control your reality. The science of selective attention explains how your brain chooses what to focus on and what to ignore in a world overflowing with information. Every second, your senses take in far more data than your conscious mind can process. From background noise to flashing lights, from passing thoughts to emotional reactions, your brain is constantly flooded with stimuli. Selective attention is the mechanism that filters this chaos and directs your mental energy toward what it considers most relevant or important. Understanding how this works is crucial for mastering your mind, because whatever you focus on becomes your reality. At the core of selective attention is a network in your brain known as the reticular activating system, RAS. This system acts like a gatekeeper, deciding which information gets through to your conscious awareness. It operates based on what you've trained it to prioritize. If you're constantly thinking about your fears, your RAS will highlight threats. If you're focused on goals, it will bring opportunities and solutions into view. This is why 2 people can be in the same situation and have completely different experiences, because their attention is shaped by different mental filters. One classic example of selective attention in action is the invisible gorilla experiment. In this famous psychological study, participants were asked to watch a video and count how many times players in white shirts passed a basketball. While they were focused on this task, a person in a gorilla suit walked right through the scene and most viewers didn't notice it at all. Their brain filtered it out because it wasn't related to their immediate task. This phenomenon shows just how powerful your focus is at shaping your awareness. If your mind isn't looking for something, you can completely miss it even if it's right in front of you. Selective attention is also tied closely to emotion and meaning. Your brain is more likely to notice things that confirm your existing beliefs, reinforce your fears, or support your desires. This is known as confirmation bias, and it plays a major role in how your attention is allocated. If you believe you're not good enough, your brain will highlight every failure and overlook your wins. If you believe you're capable and resourceful, your mind will scan for signs that reinforce that truth. This is why mastering your beliefs is just as important as mastering your focus, because the two are inseparable. The good news is that selective attention is trainable. You can condition your brain to focus on what matters most to you. This starts with awareness, recognizing what currently dominates your attention, and asking whether it's serving your goals or holding you back. Through practices like intentional goal setting, visualization, and affirmation, you can redirect your attention toward outcomes that align with your highest self. You can teach your brain to seek opportunity, not danger, growth, not limitation. What you focus on expands. If your attention is constantly on problems, you'll find more of them. If it's on possibilities, you'll start noticing open doors where others see walls. That's the power of selective attention. It doesn't just shape what you see. It shapes what you believe is possible. And ultimately, it shapes the life you create. Eliminating distractions that derail you. Eliminating distractions that derail you is a critical step toward mastering your focus and achieving consistent success. In today's world, distractions are everywhere. Your phone, your inbox, social media notifications, open browser tabs, background noise, and even your own wandering thoughts. These interruptions may seem small or harmless, but over time, they chip away at your ability to concentrate, reduce your productivity, and drain your mental energy. Every time your attention is pulled away from your task, your brain has to work harder to refocus, and that mental cost adds up. To truly make progress on your goals, you must learn to protect your focus, like it's your most valuable resource, because it is. One of the most effective ways to eliminate distractions is by creating an environment that supports deep work. Your surroundings influence your behavior more than you may realize. A cluttered space invites a cluttered mind. If your desk is piled with papers, gadgets, or visual chaos, your attention is constantly being split. The same goes for digital clutter. Too many tabs open, constant app notifications, or working with your phone in view sends a clear signal to your brain that it's okay to multitask. But multitasking is a myth. What you're really doing is task switching, and every switch breaks your mental momentum. Intentional structure is the antidote. Start by defining specific blocks of time where you focus on one high-priority task and eliminate all potential interruptions. Turn off notifications, put your phone in another room, and use tools like Do Not Disturb mode or website blockers to reduce digital temptation. Even a single hour of undistracted work can be more productive than an entire day spent multitasking. But not all distractions are external. Some of the most powerful ones come from within, thoughts that spiral into worry, urges to check your phone out of boredom, or sudden impulses to do easier tasks instead of the one that matters. These internal distractions often signal discomfort with stillness or resistance to the hard work in front of you. The key to managing them is awareness. When a distracting thought arises, notice it without judgment and redirect your focus back to the task. You may need to gently bring your mind back dozens of times, but each time you do, you're strengthening your mental discipline. Another helpful practice is to plan your distractions. Instead of trying to resist them all day, build in short breaks to check your phone, stretch, or do something mindless. When you know you have a designated time for release, it's easier to stay focused during work intervals. Techniques like the Pomodoro method, where you work for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break, are highly effective because they balance structure with rest. It's important to get honest about what's really stealing your time. Are you constantly saying yes to low-value tasks? Are you letting others interrupt your workflow because you haven't set boundaries? Distractions thrive in the absence of intention. When you clarify what truly matters and guard that time fiercely, you reclaim your power. The more you eliminate what doesn't serve your focus, the faster you move toward your goals and the more fulfilling your work becomes. Using visualization for laser focus. Using visualization for laser focus is a powerful technique that trains your brain to lock onto your goals with clarity and intensity. Visualization isn't just daydreaming or wishful thinking. It's a deliberate mental rehearsal that conditions your mind to expect success, recognize opportunities, and stay centered despite distractions. When used correctly, visualization acts like a mental blueprint. It sharpens your focus by embedding your goals into your subconscious, helping you stay aligned with your purpose even when things get chaotic. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is experienced in reality. Neuroscience has shown that the same neural pathways that light up during physical action also activate during mental imagery. This means that when you visualize yourself performing at your best, speaking confidently, completing your projects, or handling challenges with calm focus, your brain begins to treat that scenario as familiar. It starts wiring in the confidence and focus required to make it happen in real life. Effective visualization starts with clarity. You must know exactly what you want to achieve and why it matters. Vague goals produce vague results. But when you visualize specific outcomes, seeing the environment, feeling the emotions, hearing the sounds, you create a detailed mental map that your brain can follow. For example, instead of just thinking, "I want to be productive today," you can visualize yourself sitting at your desk, fully engaged, completing your most important task with energy and satisfaction. The clearer the image, the more powerful the effect. Consistency is just as important as clarity. Visualization works best when practiced daily, especially in the morning before your day begins or in the evening before sleep. These are times when your subconscious mind is most open to suggestion. Just a few minutes a day can rewire how you approach your goals. You'll begin to notice that your decisions, behaviors, and attention start aligning with the vision you've rehearsed. It's like tuning your inner compass so that no matter what distractions arise, you remain locked in on the outcome you desire. Visualization also helps you prepare for challenges. You can use it to rehearse difficult situations in advance, like resisting procrastination, staying calm under stress, or pushing through fatigue. When you mentally practice these moments, you increase your chances of handling them successfully in real time. You're not caught off guard because your mind has already been there. Another benefit is emotional regulation. Visualization doesn't just focus your mind, it calms your nerves and centers your energy. When you imagine success, your body starts to relax, your breathing slows, and your confidence rises. This physiological shift is critical for laser focus because a calm mind is a powerful mind. Stress, anxiety, and doubt scatter your attention. But when you've already seen yourself succeeding in your mind, you're less likely to panic or second guess. Visualization is a mental rehearsal for excellence. It helps you show up not just with intention, but with precision. By picturing where you want to go and how you'll get there, you cut through the noise and distractions of everyday life. You stop reacting and start directing. And over time, as your inner vision becomes stronger than your external obstacles, your focus sharpens into something unstoppable. Chapter 3. Build unshakable discipline. Turning motivation into consistent action is one of the most critical skills for achieving long-term success. Motivation can be powerful, but it's also fleeting. It comes in waves. Some days you feel fired up and ready to conquer everything, while other days it disappears without warning. If you rely on motivation alone, your progress will be inconsistent. You'll find yourself starting strong and then stalling when the energy fades. That's why real transformation happens not when you feel motivated, but when you learn to take action regardless of how you feel. Discipline turns moments of inspiration into results. The first key to turning motivation into action is understanding that feelings follow actions, not the other way around. Most people wait to feel ready, energized, or inspired before they act. But successful people flip that process. They act first, especially when they don't feel like it, then motivation often follows. The act of starting, even if it's small, creates momentum. You don't have to conquer the whole mountain today. Just take the first step, and that action will begin to shift your emotional state. Another powerful approach is to reduce the friction between intention and execution. Often, the reason you don't follow through is not because you're lazy or unmotivated, but because the path to action is cluttered with resistance. Maybe your goal feels too big, your schedule is too packed, or you're overwhelmed by where to begin. The solution is to simplify. Break your goals into tiny, clear, manageable tasks. If your goal is to write a book, commit to writing just one paragraph. If your goal is to get fit, start with 10 minutes of movement. Small actions done consistently create trust in yourself, and that self-trust becomes the engine of long-term momentum. Creating structure is also essential. Motivation thrives in a system. When you build routines, habits, and time blocks into your day, you remove the decision fatigue that often kills follow-through. Instead of debating whether or not you should do the thing, it becomes automatic. You show up because it's part of your identity and your planet, just a mood. And when you track your progress, even in small ways, you give yourself visual evidence that you're growing. That sense of forward movement reinforces your commitment and reduces the need to rely on emotional highs to get things done. Accountability can also help bridge the gap between motivation and action. When you make your goals public, at least share them with someone you trust. You add a layer of commitment that can carry you through days when your internal drive is low. This doesn't mean you need a coach or a partner for everything, but knowing that someone else is aware of your promises can strengthen your discipline when your willpower weakens. Connect every action to something deeper than just achievement. Ask yourself why this goal truly matters to you. When your actions are tied to a strong personal meaning like the desire to grow, contribute, or live with purpose, you'll be more willing to act, even when it's hard. Surface-level motivation fades quickly, but values-driven purpose sustains you. It transforms your to-do list into a mission, and your discipline into a reflection of who you are becoming. Motivation is a spark. It can ignite the fire, but it's up to you to keep it burning through daily effort, systems, and clarity. When you stop waiting to feel like it and start acting in alignment with your goals, motivation stops being your fuel and becomes your reward. Habit stacking for maximum impact. Habit stacking for maximum impact is a simple but highly effective method to build lasting routines by connecting new habits to ones you already do automatically. It's based on the understanding that your brain is wired to follow patterns. Once a habit is established, it runs on autopilot with little resistance. By anchoring a new behavior to an existing one, you bypass the mental friction of starting from scratch and dramatically increase your chances of consistency. Instead of trying to overhaul your life overnight, you simply attach small, meaningful actions to behaviors that are already part of your daily rhythm. The power of habit stacking lies in its simplicity. Rather than relying on motivation or willpower, which are inconsistent, you use triggers that already exist in your routine. For example, if you already brush your teeth every morning, you can stack a new habit like saying a positive affirmation or doing a short breathing exercise immediately after. If you make coffee every day, you can use that moment to review your goals or write in a gratitude journal. Over time, the new behavior becomes just as automatic as the original one. To make habit stacking work effectively, You need to choose a reliable anchor habit, something you do consistently without thinking. It could be waking up, eating breakfast, locking the door, turning off your computer at work, or getting into bed. Once you've chosen the anchor, decide what habit you want to build, and define it clearly. Vague intentions like exercise more or be more productive don't work well in stacking. But specific actions like doing 5 push-ups after brushing your teeth or reading 1 page after pouring your coffee are easy to implement and repeat. The key is to start small. Most people try to stack big, complex habits and then get overwhelmed. But real transformation comes from consistency, not intensity. Tiny actions might seem insignificant at first, but their power comes from repetition. Once the small habit becomes ingrained, you can expand it naturally. 5 push-ups can turn into a full workout. 1 page can turn into a daily reading habit. The momentum builds slowly, but it builds strong. Another strategy for maximizing impact is to link habits based on energy flow and time of day. For example, you might stack calming habits like deep breathing or stretching in the evening when you're winding down, and energizing habits like goal setting or cold showers in the morning when you're gearing up for the day. Aligning habits with your natural energy cycles makes them easier to maintain and more effective overall. Habit stacking also reinforces your identity. Every time you follow through on a habit, no matter how small, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. If you want to become someone who is focused, disciplined, and consistent, then even the smallest stacked actions reinforce that identity. The more you see yourself following through, the more you trust yourself to take on bigger goals. Habit stacking helps you build a lifestyle that supports your success without overwhelming your willpower. It turns ordinary moments into powerful cues for growth. By intentionally linking new behaviors to existing routines, you create a structure that makes positive change almost automatic. And when your habits are aligned, consistent, and layered with purpose, the impact compounds, turning everyday routines into a foundation for extraordinary results. Training the mind to obey, not negotiate. Training the mind to obey, not negotiate, is one of the most powerful disciplines you can develop if you want to achieve lasting success. Most people fail not because they lack knowledge or opportunity, but because they negotiate with themselves at the critical moment when action is required. They say, "I'll do it later, just 1 more minute of rest," or "I'm not in the mood right now." These seemingly harmless thoughts erode discipline over time. The mind, when left untrained, looks for the path of least resistance. It wants comfort, ease, and familiarity, even if that means sacrificing growth. But when you train your mind to obey, you break the habit of hesitation and replace it with decisive action. Obedience, in this context, doesn't mean being robotic or emotionless. It means creating an internal system where action is automatic and non-negotiable once a decision has been made. It means deciding in advance that certain behaviors will happen whether you feel like it or not. For example, if you've committed to waking up at 6 a.m. to work on your goals, obedience means your feet hit the floor when the alarm rings, not 10 minutes later after internal debate. You eliminate the choice to bargain with yourself. This mental discipline is forged through repetition. Each time you follow through without allowing negotiation, you strengthen the part of your brain responsible for executive control and weaken the part that craves short-term comfort. Over time, what was once difficult becomes routine. You no longer waste energy convincing yourself to act, you simply act. This frees up your mental bandwidth for creativity, problem-solving, and high-level thinking. One powerful way to begin training obedience is through micro-commitments. These are small, specific actions you decide on ahead of time and then execute without exception. It could be doing 10 push-ups before your morning shower, writing for 5 minutes after your coffee, or reading 1 page before bed. The goal isn't the size of the action, but the consistency of obedience. You're teaching your mind that when a command is given, it's followed. No debate, no excuse. Another important part of this training is managing self-talk. The inner voice that justifies laziness or delay must be identified and overridden. When you hear yourself thinking, "I'll do it later," you respond immediately with, "No, do it now." This internal correction rewires your habits of thought and builds mental resilience. Over time, that automatic resistance fades, and your instinct becomes to move rather than delay. The benefits of obedience extend far beyond productivity. It cultivates self-respect. You begin to trust yourself more deeply. You know that when you make a commitment, you'll keep it not just to others, but to yourself. That self-trust creates momentum, and momentum creates results. You stop being at the mercy of moods, fatigue, or fear, and instead operate from purpose and alignment. The battle is almost always won or lost in the space between intention and action. When your mind is trained to obey rather than negotiate, that space becomes razor thin. You stop hesitating. You stop starting over. You move. You execute. And because of that, you rise. Chapter 4. Emotional Mastery Under Pressure. Understanding emotional triggers is essential for gaining control over your reactions and building true mental strength. Emotional triggers are deeply rooted responses to specific situations, words, or behaviors that evoke intense emotional reactions, often far beyond what the current moment justifies. These reactions may come in the form of anger, anxiety, guilt, shame, defensiveness, or sadness, and they often catch you off guard. They can derail conversations, sabotage goals, and leave you wondering why you responded so strongly. But behind every trigger is a story of past experience, unmet need, or unresolved emotion that's asking to be acknowledged. Triggers don't come from the present, they are echoes of the past. When something triggers you, it usually touches an old wound or belief that hasn't fully healed. Maybe someone interrupts you and it reminds you of how your voice was ignored as a child. Maybe you receive criticism and it taps into a deep fear of not being good enough. The intensity of the reaction reveals how deeply rooted the issue is. This is why triggers are powerful. They bypass logic and activate your emotional memory. If you're not aware of them, they control your behavior in ways that feel automatic and overwhelming. The first step in understanding your emotional triggers is to observe them without judgment. Instead of reacting blindly or suppressing your emotions, pause and notice what's happening inside you. What was said or done that sparked your reaction? What did you feel in that exact moment? Tightness in your chest, racing thoughts, heat in your face. The more you tune into the physical and emotional cues, the more insight you gain into the trigger itself. You begin to see pattern-specific people, words, environments, or behaviors that repeatedly provoke a strong response. Once you've identified your triggers, dig deeper into the root cause. Ask yourself, what does this remind me of? When was the first time I felt this way? What fear or belief is being activated? This kind of self-inquiry can be uncomfortable, but it's where healing begins. You start to recognize that the current situation isn't the real problem. It's the unresolved emotion underneath it. When you understand the why behind your trigger, you gain the power to respond rather than react. Developing emotional intelligence is key to managing triggers. This means being able to name your emotions, understand where they come from, and express them in a healthy way. It also means knowing when to step back and give yourself space. Sometimes, the best response to a trigger is simply not to react immediately. Taking a breath, grounding yourself, and returning to the moment allows your logical mind to catch up with your emotional mind. Over time, This practice rewires your nervous system to remain calm in situations that once felt threatening. Understanding your triggers doesn't mean you'll never feel them again, but it does mean they no longer control you. You can notice them rising, trace them to their source, and choose a different path. This self-mastery transforms your relationships, decision-making, and inner peace. Instead of being hijacked by past pain, you move forward with clarity, strength, and emotional freedom. The art of pause. Respond, don't react. The art of pause is a powerful mental skill that separates reactive behavior from intentional response. In moments of emotional intensity, whether it's anger, fear, frustration, or stress, the natural tendency is to react instantly. These reactions are often driven by habit, ego, or past pain, and while they may feel justified in the moment, they rarely lead to positive outcomes. Reacting is impulsive, it's automatic. It gives control to the emotion instead of the person. But when you practice the art of pause, you insert a space between the trigger and your response, and in that space, you gain control, clarity, and the ability to choose your next move with wisdom rather than emotion. Pausing doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending they don't exist. It means acknowledging them without letting them take the wheel. It's a brief momenta breath, a count to 5, a silent reflection that allows your thinking brain to catch up with your emotional brain. The pause doesn't have to be long. Even a few seconds can completely change the trajectory of a conversation, a decision, or a reaction. In that moment, you can ask yourself, what's really going on here? What outcome do I want? Will this reaction serve me or hurt me? These simple questions shift your focus from impulse to intention. This practice is especially important in high-stakes situations, arguments, disappointments, failures, or confrontations. Reacting without pausing can escalate tension, damage relationships, and leave you feeling out of control. But when you pause, you give yourself the chance to respond with emotional intelligence. You can speak from clarity rather than rage, set boundaries with calm confidence, or walk away when silence is the wisest choice. Over time, this habit builds a reputation not only with others but within yourself as someone who is grounded, thoughtful, and in control. The art of pause also builds self-respect. Every time you choose to respond instead of react, you're reinforcing the belief that you are the master of your emotions, not their servant. You prove to yourself that your mood does not dictate your behavior, and that you can rise above the noise of the moment. This creates a powerful feedback loop. As your ability to pause strengthens, your emotional resilience grows. You become less rattled by life's unpredictability and more capable of navigating it with grace. Practicing the pause starts with mindfulness. Begin by noticing your emotional signals: tightness in your chest, quickening breath, clenching jaw. These are signs that a reaction is coming. Use these cues as your internal alarm system. When you feel them, stop, breathe. Step back mentally or physically if needed. The more often you practice this pause, the more natural it becomes. It's a muscle that strengthens with use. In a world that moves fast and rewards instant responses, the ability to pause is a quiet superpower. It gives you the upper hand in conflict, the clarity to make better decisions, and the presence of mind to act in alignment with your values. It transforms your moments of weakness into moments of strength. And in those small spaces between stimulus and response, you find your freedom. Mental tools to stay calm and in control. Mental tools to stay calm and in control are essential for navigating the stress, pressure, and unpredictability of life. In high-stress moments, your nervous system often defaults to fight, flight, or freeze. Your heart races, your breathing shortens, your thoughts spiral, and it becomes difficult to think clearly. That's why having practical, repeatable tools to manage your mind is critical not just for your emotional well-being, but for your ability to make sound decisions, communicate effectively, and lead yourself with purpose. One of the most powerful tools is controlled breathing. When you consciously slow your breath, you send a signal to your nervous system that you are safe. A simple technique like inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, and pausing for 4, known as box breathing, can rapidly calm your body and mind. It interrupts the stress response and shifts you into a state of balance. Breathing is always available, and when used intentionally, it becomes a reset button you can press anytime anxiety or overwhelm starts to build. Another vital mental tool is cognitive reframing. This involves changing the way you interpret a stressful event. Instead of seeing a difficult situation as a threat, you train your mind to see it as a challenge or an opportunity to grow. For example, instead of thinking, "I can't handle this," you reframe it as, "This is uncomfortable, but I've handled worse before." This shift in perspective doesn't ignore reality, it changes your relationship with it. By reframing your thoughts, you reduce emotional reactivity and regain control over your mental state. Grounding techniques also help bring you back to the present moment, especially when your mind starts to spiral into worst-case scenarios or regrets. A simple grounding method is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Name 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, and 1 you can taste. This pulls your attention out of the storm in your head and anchors it in the here and now. Grounding helps you detach from irrational thoughts and reconnect with the stability of the present. Visualization is another powerful tool. Before entering a high-pressure situation, meeting, performance, or confrontation, close your eyes and mentally rehearse it going well. See yourself calm, focused, and composed. Imagine your breathing steady, your voice confident, your body language strong. Visualization prepares your mind for success and reduces fear of the unknown. The more vividly you rehearse calm behavior, the more likely you are to act that way when it matters most. Self-talk is perhaps the most constant mental tool, and also one of the most underestimated. The voice in your head can either be your coach or your critic. In stressful moments, listen carefully to how you're speaking to yourself. Are you escalating the tension with thoughts like, "This is too much," or "I always mess this up"? Or are you calming yourself down with thoughts like, "I've got this, one step at a time," or "This will pass"? By consciously shifting your inner dialogue, you regulate your emotions and create a sense of internal leadership. Mental separation is a tool that involves distancing your identity from your emotions. Remind yourself, "I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. You are the observer, not the storm." This awareness gives you the space to witness your emotional reactions without becoming consumed by them. It puts you back in the driver's seat, where you can choose your response instead of reacting on autopilot. Together, these mental tools form a personal toolkit for staying calm and in control under pressure. They don't eliminate challenges, but they give you the power to face them with clarity, strength, and emotional steadiness. And the more you practice them, the more they become your default state, not just in crisis, but in everyday life. Chapter 5. Think like the person you want to become. The act as if method is a powerful psychological strategy for transforming your mindset and behavior by aligning your actions with the identity you want to embody even before you fully believe or feel ready. At its core, it means choosing to think, speak, and behave as if you are already the person you want to become. It's not about pretending or being fake. It's about bridging the gap between who you are now and who you aim to be by living in alignment with that future version of yourself. Over time, those actions reshape your identity, beliefs, and results. This method works because your brain responds to behavior. When you act with confidence, even if you feel uncertain, your brain begins to register that behavior as evidence of capability. If you consistently show up as someone who is disciplined, focused, or courageous in small ways, your self-image begins to shift to match those qualities. You're essentially rewiring your neural pathways, training your mind to believe that this version of you is not only possible, but already present. For example, if you want to be someone who is successful in business, start acting as if you already are. Wake up with intention. Organize your day like a high performer. Communicate with clarity and make decisions from a place of confidence. If you want to be physically fit, adopt the habits of someone who prioritizes health. Prepare your meals, get your workouts in, and carry yourself with energy. The key is to bring those future habits into the present moment and practice them until they feel natural. One of the biggest advantages of this method is that it bypasses the common excuse of, "I don't feel like it." Feelings are fleeting and often shaped by past experiences and current fears. Waiting to feel confident, motivated, or certain before you act creates stagnation. But when you act as if those feelings are already present, you create momentum. The feelings follow the action, not the other way around. You build belief through proof, and proof comes from action. It's important to understand that the act as if method is not about delusion or forcing yourself into unrealistic roles. It's about intentional alignment. You're not claiming to be someone you're not. You're committing to becoming someone you deeply want to be. And by acting in alignment with that person, you accelerate the transformation. Over time, the gap between acting and being closes. What started as a conscious effort becomes your natural state. This method also builds integrity and consistency. When your actions reflect your future self rather than your past limitations, you begin to trust yourself more. You stop sabotaging your efforts with doubt or hesitation. Instead, you carry yourself with purpose, make choices with clarity, and attract results that match your new identity. Others begin to respond differently too, because you're no longer seeking permission to change. You've already decided. The act as if method isn't about perfection, it's about practice. It's about choosing every day to step into the version of yourself that leads, creates, and grows. And when you do it long enough, it stops being an act. It becomes who you are. Identity shifting through repetition. Identity shifting through repetition is a transformative process where consistent actions, thoughts, and behaviors gradually reshape the way you see yourself and ultimately the way you show up in the world. At the heart of every lasting change is a shift in identity. You don't just want to build habits, you want to become the kind of person who naturally lives them out. Repetition is the tool that makes this shift possible. Through daily, intentional practice, you can teach your brain to accept a new version of yourself as your default identity. Most people try to change by focusing on outcomes: losing weight, making more money, becoming more productive. But these goals often fail because they don't address the underlying identity. If you still see yourself as someone who's lazy, unworthy, or undisciplined, your actions will eventually align with that identity no matter how hard you try. The key is to reverse the process. Instead of acting for results, act to reinforce a new identity. Tell yourself, "I am the kind of person who follows through," and then prove it to yourself in small, consistent ways. Over time, that identity becomes real, not just intellectually, but emotionally and neurologically. Repetition is what makes the new identity stick. The more often you perform an action, speak a belief, or follow a routine, the more familiar it becomes to your brain. Neurons that fire together wire together. So if you repeatedly act like someone who values discipline, focus, or health, those neural pathways grow stronger. Eventually, those behaviors become automatic not because you force them, but because they now feel like a natural extension of who you are. The repetition doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. In fact, it's the small, daily decisions that matter most. Drinking water instead of soda, waking up with purpose, writing one paragraph each day, speaking kindly to yourself when things go wrong. Each of these actions is a vote for your new identity. They serve as tiny proofs that you're becoming the person you envision. And each time you follow through, your self-image shifts a little more. Affirmations and visualization can also support identity repetition. By regularly telling yourself who you are becoming and mentally seeing yourself already living that truth, you reinforce the new self-concept. But these mental practices only work when backed by consistent action. Identity is not just built by thinking differently, it's built by doing differently. And the more you act in alignment with your future self, the less resistance you feel over time. It's also important to track your progress, not just for motivation but to reinforce belief. When you look back and see how often you've chosen the new path, even in small ways, it solidifies your confidence. You're no longer faking it, you're becoming it. The story you tell about yourself begins to change from the inside out. Identity shifting through repetition takes patience, but it's incredibly powerful. Instead of relying on short-term motivation or external validation, you create internal certainty. You build the kind of self-trust that doesn't need hype or perfect conditions. You know who you are because you've proven it to yourself over and over again. And once your identity shifts, the results follow not as a struggle, but as a reflection of who you've become. Becoming magnetic to your goals. Becoming magnetic to your goals means developing the mindset, habits, and energy that naturally attract the outcomes you desire. Instead of constantly chasing success, you become the kind of person who draws it in through alignment, belief, and consistent action. This isn't about wishful thinking or relying on luck. It's about cultivating an inner state that resonates with what you want, so that your goals feel like a natural result of who you are, rather than something distant you're struggling to reach. The first step in becoming magnetic is clarity. You must know exactly what you want and why you want it. Vague goals create vague energy. When you are specific about your desires, whether it's building a business, improving your health, or developing confidence, you give your mind a clear target to work toward. Clarity sharpens your focus, and focus directs your energy. It also activates the reticular activating system, RAS, in your brain, which filters information and highlights opportunities aligned with your goal. You start noticing people, ideas, and situations that support your mission simply because your mind has been trained to look for them. Next, you must align your identity with your goal. You can't attract what you subconsciously believe you don't deserve. If deep down you think you're unworthy of success, your actions will reflect that belief, often through hesitation, self-sabotage, or avoidance. Becoming magnetic requires you to embody the version of yourself who already has the goal. That means adopting the mindset, values, and behaviors of that future self now, not someday. You start acting like the person who already lives the life you're aiming for. That alignment sends a powerful message to your subconscious. This is who I am now. And your mind and actions will begin to mirror that truth. Emotional energy plays a huge role in attraction. When you feel anxious, desperate, or doubtful about your goals, you repel them because that energy creates internal resistance. But when you approach your goals with calm confidence, gratitude, and certainty, you generate momentum. You stop needing the goal to fill a void, and instead, you create from a place of wholeness. This doesn't mean being passive or pretending everything is perfect. It means holding the belief that your success is inevitable and acting accordingly. That belief affects the way you speak, move, and make decisions. It gives you presence, power, and a quiet certainty that people naturally respond to. Consistency is the glue that holds magnetism together. When you show up day after day, even with small actions, you build credibility with yourself. That internal self-trust is magnetic. It shows up in your posture, your voice, your work ethic. Others sense your commitment, and the world begins to respond to your energy. You start to feel like things are falling into place not because life got easier, but because you've become aligned with your path. Becoming magnetic to your goals is about closing the gap between wanting and being. When your thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors match the reality you desire, your environment begins to reflect that change. You no longer feel like you're pushing against life, you're working with it. Opportunities find you. People are drawn to your clarity and purpose. And progress becomes a natural expression of who you are, rather than a battle you have to fight. It's not magic, it's alignment. When who you are matches what you want, life begins to move with you, not against you. That's the true power of becoming magnetic.